Hi, this is Joe Speaks Truth. Just 3 years ago, New York City was placed under the harshest lockdowns out of the whole country. While things seem that they're going back to normal, I want to invite you all to listen to the untold stories of the many New Yorkers that had to survive lockdowns and vaccine mandates. Hello everyone, this is Joe Speaks Truth, and today with me I have Arthur, who is at NYPD, which stands for New York Police Officer, for 16 and a half years. How are you doing today, Arthur?
I'm good.
Okay. Why did you decide to become a police officer?
Decided to become a police officer because I wanted to help the community. I wanted to help make everyone safe, and I really enjoy helping people and fighting for what's right.
In 2020, NYPD was put in a very, very difficult situation. There were riots in the streets, and you guys were being treated very harshly because of something that happened outside of New York. Did it make you regret becoming an officer when you saw the situation?
No, it was a hard time during the 2020 situation that we had. Nobody liked us at all. There was a lot of riots going on, and everybody was anti-cop. I didn't regret it because I know that I'm a good officer and that I'm not one of those guys that is abusive or anything like that, and I don't support that. So during those riots, I would try to talk with people that were protesting and try to communicate with them in a good light. And
Okay. When they announced a global pandemic and that we had to shut down for 2 weeks, what was your reaction?
Oh man, I remember that, and I just remember that they were hyping this thing up, like everyone was like there was bodies everywhere, and I really didn't feel that there was the need to close everything down. And when everything did close down, I remember they had Kara's had that rally over there in Grand Plaza.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember during the initial lockdowns, they were doing rallies against that, and I remember going to that, and I don't think we should have locked down at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Some of the restrictions put on the people were to keep 6 feet apart and to wear a mask. However, when you guys were arresting people, there was no way to keep distance. So did that make sense to you for how they kept saying if we hug each other, if we communicate with one another, if we go visit our grandmother in the nursing home, we can't stay with our family members at hospitals to advocate for them. But then you guys were arresting people. Where was the 6 feet there? Did that make sense?
Oh, that was horrible. They wanted everyone with masks. They wanted this 6 feet that was unrealistic because, for us in police work, police work's a contact sport. You have to touch people, you have to frisk somebody, if I have to arrest somebody, I'm gonna have to be within 6 feet. So it's not something that we could stay and do virtually.
Right. So, the reason why I'm asking is because since basically everything was shut down, and also because they had certain restrictions in New York that they did not have in New Jersey, Virginia, Florida, Texas, etc. So I don't know, I just feel like if this was really about following the science and following consistency, then it should have been consistent through all different parts of I guess, the country, but it wasn't. So I'm trying to bring that up to bring a point. Did a lot of police officers were getting sick of COVID or anything like that, since you guys had to actually have contact with so many different people?
Honestly, I felt like a lot of guys, in my experience, seeing guys at work, I know some guys who got it and were like in ICU. I know some guys that died, but there were most of the guys that were getting COVID and were out sick with COVID. They just had a positive test, like they weren't actually sick. They just tested positive.
They show no symptoms. However,
no
as per the test, they were positive with COVID.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And then once that they came out with the jab, that was like an incubator. I remember that like 4 or 5 guys went the first day that it was available for us, and the next day they all went out with COVID, and their partners all went out with COVID. Their wives, their children at home, all. It was just like if it was about radiating off of them or something.
Right. So many of us were protesting since 2020, warning people that eventually our jobs were going to be threatened, right? Because we saw the writing on the wall. Some of us had like insight that they were going to restrict more with traveling, and that it was going to escalate, right? Why did it take so long for NYPD to join the fight against the mandates? I know you were one of the very first cops that did. However, why do you think that it took so long? Because I feel like it was like a little bit of the domino effect. They first started with like teachers, healthcare workers, and then they went down to like occupations that were like mostly filled with men. I think that was very strategic, because internship before, it looks like teachers were so compliant with this, and a lot of the people that work for the DOE are actually female. So why do you think that other officers didn't join? Because I remember when the death of one of the officers, I think it's Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, Rivera, what was the name of the officer?
Oh, Rivera and Mora.
Yes. When the death of those officers, I saw like how all the police came out, and I was like, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was great that you guys came out to honor your colleague or whatever. But I was thinking, like, why couldn't the same be done, like, to fight this off, like, against bandits, MTA, police, even though the MTA was not mandated, but still, like, with firefighters, NYPD, even though eventually the firefighters did come, but that was only days before they were about to be, like, giving a deadline. So why do you think that it took so long?
Honestly, I feel like when it comes to that kind of thing, a lot of people feel like that doesn't affect me. That doesn't have anything to do with me yet. But when you see something like, honestly, once they started attacking the teachers, all the other unions should have stood with them. And if they had that united front, I think that whole mandate thing probably would have stopped. Right there. Because that's when they started like picking off like one union at a time. And everyone would sit there, hopefully we're like, that doesn't affect us. Hopefully that doesn't affect us. And when you do that, eventually it does, and then you're standing alone. Because you're the last line.
Right.
So when they first start trying to pick off people, everyone has to be on that line.
Right.
Right there. All the unions should have fought for that.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, I agree absolutely. There's a point that said they came for the socialists. I didn't speak because I wasn't a socialist, and then it goes down the line or whatever. It says multiple things, and then it said, then they came for me, and there was no one to speak up for me, and that's exactly how I felt. And when I was advocating for people to join and join the resistance and fight, I wasn't even advocating as a DOE worker. I was just advocating as a New Yorker. First I was advocating as a human being. Secondly, as a New Yorker, and then also for the USA, because people made this like, oh, red versus blue, but at the end of the day, I want people to understand this is about globalization, okay? So it might seem like they're hitting the Democratic states first, but eventually it's going to go down to the rest states too, because the point is to destroy the United States at all costs, because we're the last nation standing on the way of this new world order. And I know people think it's a conspiracy theory, but it's not. It's actually a conspiracy, because for many years, elite groups have conspired to bring this country down, and that's why I think they did the rise of 2020. That's why they have to attack police officers. And I'm not saying that all police officers are good officers. In every occupation, there are bad apples, right? And I think those people that do stuff in their jobs should be removed and punished, right? But they have to cause chaos in order for us to beg them for some kind of order, and in that order it ends up with less freedom for us in our society. So the whole police stuff, brutality stuff, I'm not saying that they're not officers that do police brutality, but the media highlights, especially race baiting, because they need people to be angry and mad at each other in order for them to continue further down the destruction of the United States. So I know you had, you said a medical religious exemption. Did you ever stop working? Did you witness any colleagues that were put on leave without pay? How was your situation? Were you ever affected financially? Because you said they told you that your medical exemption wasn't valid or something like that. Can you explain? Can you talk about that?
All right. So pretty much when they came out with that you could put in medical or religious exemptions, the whole problem with medical exemptions was they don't really exist, because they want you to provide documentation, but all the doctors they'll tell you verbally, oh, don't take this jab, don't do this, but I can't put it in writing because I'll lose my medical license. So when you're doing that, you're telling people, oh, if you could get a medical exemption, you could get a supporting medical documentation from your doctor. We'll approve your medical exemption, but it doesn't exist, because when you're putting the doctors in that situation where, oh, you could write a medical exemption, but we're gonna take your license away, they're not gonna put anything in writing. And how are people supposed to do that? Like, I had a guy that I work with, he actually got his doctor to put it in writing, and they still denied him.
Wow.
Yeah. And like, it's crazy. It's like, you have a medical professional telling the city, my patient takes this medications and has this condition, he can't take this. And then you have the city telling this person, you have 7 days to take this jab, or you're getting fired.
Right. And the thing that amazes me about that is that we kept hearing, follow the science and listen to the experts, and doctors were being praised, and nurses and anybody that was in the healthcare industry was being praised as a hero. So then we have this doctor writing this medical exemption, but it's not valid, and they're more scared of even losing their license. But we were told to listen to the experts, and so only Dr. Fauci, who is the expert from the White House, but he doesn't see any patients though. So it's just so like bizarre to me how people don't put one and two together and realize, hey, something is clearly off. So we're only to listen to the experts that come from the White House, that have their own agenda. And we're only to listen to the doctors that are being praised by the mainstream media, because there were many doctors and even nurses and other healthcare workers that were speaking out against, the mandates, and that they were also telling us what was really happening in these hospitals, that a lot of these COVID deaths were not truly factual, that there was some sketchy stuff going on in there for money, and because they needed to keep the public fearful so that they can continue to put more restrictions. And end up taking the freedoms away of people because you're ignorant, and when someone is fearful, they're not even capable of thinking rationally. But I know you also put a religious exemption. Is that correct? So what happened with that?
Yeah, I put in a religious exemption as well, and basically my religious exemption it did end up getting approved at the end. So when we put in the medical and the religious exemptions, basically the most that I got from my doctor was author is my patient, to whom it may concern. Mm-hmm. Literally all it said. So I sent it in, and with my own writing on top of it, that got denied. And then I appealed it, and my religious, I hand wrote it was probably like 13 pages.
Wow, explaining
why the vaccine was no good for me, and it was against my beliefs. And then that got, and I had attached the like
signature of a pastor or something.
I had supporting letters from a couple of priests as well. Mm-hmm. That I believe that helped as well.
Wow.
And
so that was accepted.
Originally got denied.
Okay.
There was that first round that they denied everything, mm-hmm. and then they didn't give you a reason why. And then there was the lawsuit that then they told everyone why. So then my reason, I got the reason was like didn't provide enough documentation.
What? Hold on. I'm sorry. What enough documentation do we need to provide to the city about our religion when that's protected by the First, Second Amendment? What? I'm just...
insanity.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. This is really, like I say, an episode of Clown World. You know, because people think, no, New York City, it wasn't a joke. What happened here was disgusting. And yes, it's 2023, but people are still affected by this. In your case, did you ever stop working? Were you hit financially like other people in other areas of work? Or were you always allowed to go to work?
Luckily, we're allowed to work with the pending exemptions. Mm-hmm. So I was never out of work, and I was never, I guess you could say I was never hit financially mm-hmm. with it. But I do know people that at the end, once they got denied, they had their 7 days to decide what they were going to do, and they ended up leaving either to another state.
Did you see a lot of those, or?
I know a few guys, like, personally. Then I've seen guys like through like chats and stuff like that. And then there's a lot of the hidden guys. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that had over the 20 years to retire mm-hmm. that were going to stay. And they'll talk to me in a private chat and say, yeah, I was going to stay. I was going to do 30 years. I was going to stay another 5 years. Mm-hmm. But because they got denied,
they were forced into earlier retirement?
And they got their, you have 7 days, you're going to get fired. But everything's great. So since they're, some of these guys are popular guys in our job. Mm-hmm. They're not going to say, oh, I'm retiring. I have the time to retire. I'm retiring because they're going to fire me in 7 mm-hmm. days because I won't take this jab. They're just going to say, oh, it's time for me to retire. Mm-hmm. That time's come. I see the writing on the wall. Mm-hmm. Everything's changing, and they're going to retire.
Right.
Instead of just saying, look at all this work that I'm doing. Look at these programs that I'm putting into effect. And, some of these guys are really popular guys mm-hmm. that are loved by the job, loved by the community. Mm-hmm. But they're not going to say that in open. They'll say that in a private conversation, though.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's stuff that hurts us.
Right.
That's everybody.
No, yeah, that's unfortunate, especially if they have been in the community for so many years. And if they were actually good officers or good at their jobs or whatever the case might be. And it's absolutely disgusting because I feel like a lot of the areas of work, they lost a lot of good, decent people because they just decided to just go along with this bullcrap. But talking about that, I and a few others were arrested at restaurants for refusing to leave after we were asked for proof of vaccination. some of us felt betrayed by NYPD, given that a lot of us were actually in support of police officers, and there were a few people that came from families that were officers, and we protested alongside you guys. What do you have to say about this? Because I know a lot of people that were very, very into Back the Blue, but after that happened, even though you were not one of those officers that did that, but when that happened, a lot of people were really, really upset. I felt kind of like betrayed a little bit. So
I remember when all that happened. I remember I think it was the Cheesecake Factory was like the first major one.
Yes.
Then the next day was the Applebee's.
Yes.
I remember I was at work. I'm looking at lives, and I'm like, this can't be real life.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I got off of work, I remember driving to Queens, and I was outside. I think it was the 110 with everybody.
Yeah, I think yeah.
And then the next until like late when all the five everybody got out. Then the next day it was you and a couple other people at Applebee's, and then I went out there and it was cold because I'm one of those guys that that believes a hoodie and a car is a coat. And it was cold days those days.
Yeah, it was pretty cold. Yeah, it's pretty cold.
You know, honestly, I didn't support that at all. Like, I was getting a lot of backlash from other people that I work with and like other officers that are like on my social media because I posted this is disgusting, like what's going on, like this shouldn't have happened and stuff like that. And everyone was just like, oh, well, they should have left. And it's like, no, the whole policy shouldn't have ever happened. This whole, you had to show a medical card to eat. Like, what happened to HIPAA?
Right.
You know, like I thought our medical records were supposed to be protected and private. Like, why am I showing a waitress with my card? Why am I showing a cashier my card? Like, you're not my doctor. Right. And that whole process that was going on then, it was crazy. Like, because even me, I wasn't vaccinated. Like, if I wanted to go eat in a restaurant, like, technically I'm working, protecting the streets, protecting this establishment, and technically I can't even come in here and get food. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, right. Like, that whole thing was crazy. I was frustrated behind it because people really didn't want to see that what was going on was wrong, was like fully wrong, and that whole process was unbelievable. Like that whole time period, because you compare it to other things in history, people are like, no. Right, and I don't understand how people don't see that because actually some people were offended when we say that it's like Nazi Germany because it is like Nazi Germany. When we're not allowed to go to places, right, that are open to the public, and now a group of people are being targeted and told that they're dirty and that they're spreading a virus, right? Those were the same exact techniques that were used back in Nazi Germany. And in order for the population to turn on one another, they do have to dehumanize one group of people. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And one group of people need to be scapegoated in order for the people around in the communities to even assist people that are like, I don't know, that are dictators and stuff like that. And that's the best way that they can move forward and make it work. Because if they had to fully, like, how can I explain it? If they have to be 100% clear with their intentions, I think most people wouldn't go with it. But because there's like a psychological brainwashing technique of making a group of people superior and making one inferior, then that exposes human nature and exposes how some people do want to be superior and that they enjoy
to see another group of people being victimized, and so that makes them feel good about themselves or whatever the case may be. So because that happens, then they can sit back and just let anybody else get abused because, hey, it's not me or whatever. They should have done the right thing, so they say. But yeah, those were really, really crazy times. Like, people have no idea. We really could not go to just any restaurant. We couldn't just go to the movie theaters or whatever the case might be. And then we had to have that back and forth with our jobs. I ended up getting fired from my job. And I have no intentions of going back because I just feel disrespected, and I'm not about to beg them to just give me anything, and I'm not signing anything either, to give away my civil rights, the ability to even sue them, and also not even getting back pay. So it's absolutely ridiculous. With that being said, what are your final words about everything that's happened? What would you like people to know and understand?
Pretty much, when you see something that's wrong, that's going on, even if it doesn't directly affect you, like, you have to stand up for it, because eventually it's going to come your way, like it did with all these. Once you give up like that one right, it's just like a domino effect. So you have to try to stop that. And protect yourself. And when everyone's together, we're stronger. When we're like small little splintered groups, that's when they're able to knock everybody out. And we just have to keep fighting for our rights. Standing up for what's good, and don't let them take advantage of us and treat us like we're less than, because we're not the same as them, because we're all human. If you're black, white, vaccinated, unvaccinated, whatever religion you are, we're all human. So we just have to stand together.
Mm-hmm. Arthur, thank you so much for being here. And I sincerely hope that people get to hear your perspective as a police officer for 16 and a half years, and the fact that regardless of that, you didn't stand up for what was right because of your uniform. You did it because of you're a human being, right? So it's a lesson for everyone not to just sit here and demonize people just because of their occupation, because you could just be very surprised to find that there's people that you might not like or whatever because the media told you so, and they're actually are on the right side of history. So thank you so much for your perspective, and I hope that people can find this information valuable and worthy of listening to it. So thank you so much.
Thanks.